Welcome to MS unMasked, Our Journey and Beyond, a podcast where hosts Justine Martin and Allyson Brown share their personal experiences, insights and practical advice on navigating life with multiple sclerosis. Each week they delve into topics such as self-care, nutrition, exercise, sleep and symptom management. Join them as they explore the physical, emotional and mental aspects of living with MS, providing a supportive community for listeners touched by this condition. Get ready to be inspired and empowered on this incredible journey through MS unMasked, Our Journey and Beyond.
Welcome back, everyone, to MS unMasked. Allyson, we're talking about carers today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yes, let's talk about carers. Carers are fundamental in our journeys, right? And I know you've had kind of a different experience than a lot of people, not only having had carers like to look after you right now, but you were a carer for your mum, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I became a carer quite young, actually. Part-time carer to start with, and then becoming her full-time carer. At the time, like when I became her full-time carer, I didn't actually realize I was her full-time carer. I know that sounds strange, but we're going back 30 years ago now, and it wasn't really a thing that we spoke about. There wasn't extra support. There was nothing like there is today. I mean, we have Carers Victoria, Carers Australia, NDIS that has support workers that are carers, and there was nothing like that when I was a carer.
It's amazing, isn't it? And you would have felt kind of a lot of emotions, I would think, being in that sort of role.
Anger was mainly the emotion I felt for a long period of time. My mum was very defiant, not just when she got MS and, the later years when she had MS, but her whole life. So she was very, very strong-willed, very defiant. If you told her to do something or asked her to do something, she would be defiant and would be no. And so there was a huge role reversal for her and I, and that happened in my later teenage years, where I became her primary carer, and she just wouldn't do anything, nothing at all. It was horrible. And it's like, how did I end up in this position? All my friends were out, enjoying their life, traveling, doing things, and here I was at home with her. I actually gave up my music career to go home and be her full-time carer, because she would be in bed for days. There was no one that could do her food shopping. She was unable to drive anymore. We lived in a small town, and she never really asked for help either. And that was a big thing. Her pride got in the way of asking other people for help, and it was just expected that Justy would go home and do that and look after her. And it wasn't all bad, but it was definitely a very dark time in my life. And then I fell pregnant, and my partner left me when I was 13 weeks pregnant. And then all of a sudden, here I was with a newborn baby, a single mum newborn baby, and wiping 3 shitty bums. And I got to the point, I was 22 years of age, and I was at my breaking point. And I was close to having a full breakdown when my grandfather, after 14 years of my mum having MS, actually stepped up to the plate. And we realised that mum needed to go into full-time care, that I wasn't able. I couldn't lift her anymore in and out of the wheelchair, and she was soiling the bed every day, and I was having to clean that up every day. And it was hard work, and there was no support for carers at all. There was no one that I could go and talk to. I didn't have family support. My friends I wouldn't let in the house because mum was incontinent, and she would just pull her catheter straight out, fully inflated, because she never felt it. And then she'd sit in her wee. or she'd get down onto the carpet in the lounge room, sitting in front of the heater because she was cold, and couldn't get up to go to the toilet, so she'd sit there. So the house just smelt of urine all the time, and her being incontinent, and I was too embarrassed to have friends come around, and no one knew. No one knew what I was going through as well, and I didn't know where to turn for help from it. So when I was diagnosed, so Mum passed away 3 years after I put her into care, and I carried a lot of guilt for a long time, and I still do, that, I'd failed her by putting her into full-time care, but she was in a place that she got the right care for her. And she used to make us feel like absolute shit when we'd go and visit her. And then when we went to leave, she was a complete and utter bitch. There's no other way of putting it. When she died, we had people come up so she was at the MS home in Lidcombe in Sydney. And we had people attend her funeral from there, and the nurses and everything. And they turned around and told us that Mum was the one that made everyone laugh, and she was totally different to the way that she treated us. Totally different.
Right.
And we're like, who is that woman? That's not, she made us feel so guilty and awful for leaving her there. Yeah, she obviously made the best of, that bad situation. And she was always laughing and smiling and that, but that's not what she did to us. So that extra guilt that was put on me as a carer. I didn't have a normal childhood. I didn't have a normal teenage years, and the first half of my 20s, was all about caring for her. So I do know what it's like to be a carer under really exceptional circumstances.
Yeah.
And it is hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. So when I was diagnosed, I made a conscious effort, because my daughter was 13 when I was diagnosed, about a month before she turned 14. And Zach had just gone off to the army. And I made a very conscious effort that I would not do what my mum did. And I would outsource as much as I possibly could on asking for help. And then obviously NDIS came in, and now we have support workers that do a lot of things that in previously family would have done. And I wanted my daughter to try and have a normal teenage upbringing as she possibly could, rather than, she's got to stay at home and clean or cook or something, or clean up after me from it. So yeah.
And it sounds like that would have been a very challenging situation. And I imagine that from what you've said, it sounds like you and your mum were both wearing masks. So
Yeah.
you were wearing the mask of my life's fine, even though it was such a burden for you and such a challenge for you. But then your mum was obviously wearing a mask, in her situation, being all smiles for the carers and nurses. But, secretly she's like, oh, I'm really frustrated and bitter. And and that's hard, because we wear masks, right? That's what we do.
Understandable, on her being bitter. I mean, she never had any counselling. That wasn't something that happened back then either. Her disease had robbed her of so much in her life, and she'd been ill since I was 3 years old. So for 23 years of my life, my mum had always been sick. So she had breast cancer at 27. She got MS at 33, cervical cancer at 40, and lung cancer at 49. And she died from complications from MS at the age of 49. So she had, she ended up getting kidney failure because she couldn't eat or drink properly. So they put a peg straight into her stomach. And her kidneys were not used to having more than 60 mils of fluid a day, because her throat had completely stopped. She couldn't swallow, and she would choke on just having, some liquid. And that's why she got put into hospital. She got put in because they thought, well, she had a UTI, and then noticed that she was chesty, and it just kind of went from there. But then they peg fed her and were putting 2-3 litres of fluid through her a day, and her kidneys went, we can't handle this, and she went into full kidney failure. So there was guilt associated with all of that as well. But she'd always been sick in my whole life. Like up until when she died, all I remember her is being ill, and that took its toll as well. Even if I wasn't her carer, that still took its toll. I think it's important when you're a carer to have your own support network around you as well.
Absolutely, because as you say, like, it's a big task, it's a big burden, it's a big responsibility, and quite often, as you say, it's family members that fall into a role of carer because they feel like they need to be, like, they need to look after you, they want to look after you, but they're not necessarily equipped with the skills to be able to really provide the best level of care. Like what you said, your mum got to the stage where she needed that extra level of care. Now, not because of your failings, just because that's what people need sometimes. And, it's the right thing to be able to do that, to give her the care that she actually need, so that, because it's got to be embarrassing for her as well. And probably mortifying, to be honest. Like my family, there's a member of my family that's very old, has 4% kidney function at the moment, and is very close to not making it. And the family took it on the responsibility of going, look, we'll look after her, we'll care for her, and we'll give her everything that she needs. Now, unfortunately, it means that she is soiling herself and wetting herself and all of those things that, guess what, the family now has to deal with. It's mortifying for this lady. It is absolutely mortifying. And look, family members, we don't always want them to know everything about us. And, in that sort of way, like, you don't want to be wiping, your grandmother's bottom, because, we're not supposed to kind of be doing that. It feels strange after you're grown up. You feel like you don't want your family members to be sort of meddling around there, because it's just not kind of, it's not right. And it feels mortifying. It feels embarrassing. It feels like this just doesn't feel right. I want to be remembered as being, the person, maybe the mask that I wear, maybe so, but I don't want to have to rely on family members to provide that level of care. If I get to that stage, I'd like to think that, because as you said, there's carers out there, there are facilities out there, there are services out there that can do exactly this. I would like to leave my family with the memory of the person that they know, rather than the person that I might become, being more disabled down the track. And look, that's an individual journey for everybody. But I know from my personal, heart that would be my experience, and my choice would be, please don't let my family see me like that. Just let them have the memory of me being good and healthy and everything, and, leave that to the experts, because
yeah, for sure. And that's why, I have been so careful on what Ally helps me do, and what she can do and what she can't do. And I'd rather have a stranger in doing some things who I never have to see again or face again than, having my daughter in doing that. But we are so fortunate now that we do have NDIS and that we do have support workers, which has taken the burden away from a lot of family members. I mean, I had my fiance leave me because he was so scared that my MS was going to affect his goals and dreams in life from it. So he didn't want to be my carer. I didn't ask him to be my carer. I just asked him to be my partner. But he saw a road that he didn't want to go down, and that was his choice. And, you have to respect that he knew that he wasn't going to be the type of person that could actually handle what was potentially in front of him.
It
And
does
that
take a
happens.
certain kind of person.
It does.
It
And
really does.
yeah, and a lot of people are scared as well. Not just a person that's diagnosed with an incurable disease, but their husbands, wives, partners, as well. It affects absolutely everyone. And I think for those of us who have the disease, we need to actually stop and think, okay, what is this doing to my partner? What is this doing to my spouse? How can I help? What can I do? How can I, approach the subject of it? What supports can I, suggest that they have for them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, like, not that he was my carer, I suppose, like to a certain level, though. He would have been. So when I was, 2018, brain fog, fatigue,
Yep.
depression, anxiety, you name it, I couldn't function properly. I still remember, my husband's face every time he'd come back home from work. He'd open the door and he'd be like, "Hey, how are you?" And the look on his face would be like, "I know you're awful. I know you feel like crap. I know that, I know the answer I'm going to get back from you." And the look of sort of devastation and sadness in his eyes when he would ask me, knowing the answer, like a rhetorical question, knowing the answer, it killed me. Like, that just floored me. The fact that my illness was kind of putting all this burden, this pressure on him that was making him feel awful. And, thank goodness I wasn't at the stage where I needed him to be, really there caring for me physically, but still the burden was still on him. And, he could feel it.
Imagine what he was feeling as he was walking up to the door to open the door. What was going through his mind, and that as well. My counsellor said to me, like after Kelly left, it was, men try to fix you, and when they can't fix you, they work and they put themselves into more work of that primal thing of being a provider. If they can't fix you and they see you in pain, and that's what happened with us until he was honest and said, well, I can't do this. You having that's going to affect this in my life. Was it selfish? Yeah, it was really selfish of him to do that. What happened to death do us part? But if he couldn't handle the diagnosis, how was he going to handle me on my worst days?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's probably in a way a blessing in disguise that he did sort of turn around and say that. Like, that would have felt mortifying. I would have been mortified at that sort of abandonment, obviously. But at the same time, it's probably like, if I needed to rely on somebody that actually couldn't care for me, that I was thinking could, well, that's even worse, right? That's even worse that they would stick with.
We'd had the discussion about him leaving. When I was diagnosed, we sat down and I'm like, here's your gate pass. If you can't handle this, we don't go any further. And we were living in Perth. And he's like, no, I love you. I'm going to be there for you forever. Don't be stupid. I'm going to be there. 20 months later, after moving across the country, even before we moved, and I was packing up everything, I said, are you 100% sure about this? And I knew something wasn't right. And I'm like, are you 100% sure about this? Because when I'm not paying for things to be moved back across, now's the time, don't come with us then. And no, I love you, I'm going to be there for you, we'll make this work. And then from that conversation, it was 12 months later and he was gone.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think he thought my MS would be, I was very ill when I first got MS and it was progressing at a very rapid rate until I got onto disease-modifying therapy to slow it down. And the future wasn't looking very good back then, but he didn't give it time. I didn't give it time because we didn't know. I mean, we really didn't know.
the mystery of this illness is that it can be anything at any time. Like you can wake up tomorrow and your legs just don't work. And guess what?
That happened.
That's right. And I'm sure that a lot of us have, where it's terrifying.
It is.
Just want to give a big shout out to all of the carers out there, because without you, a lot of us just can't do what we need to do, can't live the life that we want to live. And you guys just make it a little bit easier for us.
Yeah.
Just to be able to save that little bit of pride or save that little bit of dignity, just to be able to help us out. And I know you've got some carers that help you around the house, don't you?
Yeah, look, I do. And I wouldn't be able to do half the amount of things that I do without my support network, all my carers that come in and do things, just, simple things from opening up paint tubes some days for me when I can't do that. My hands aren't working properly, or, they come in and do my gardening. They come and do my cleaning, my washing, my ironing. People are like, oh, you get so much stuff done in business. It's like, yeah, well, because I have help everywhere else. I have so much energy that I can either put into work or I can put into trying to vacuum my house. And I have, a carer that comes in and does that. So it enables me that I can then live a more full and rewarding life for myself. It would be so hard if you didn't have any support whatsoever. And I strongly believe that if I didn't have the support that I have, that my MS would be progressing at a lot faster rate than it is, because the stress that would be putting me under would be massive. So I just want to shout out as well that, if you're sitting there and you're not on NDIS, swallow your pride and go and do it. If you've been knocked back for it, appeal again, go for it again. Get in contact with us, and I can give you some advice or some names and numbers to call in order to help get you on NDIS for that help with carers.
Yeah, and that's obviously for people in Australia, but if anybody else that might be listening from across the globe, if you are feeling like you're sort of wondering whether there's any supports out there, and that you're not getting those, please just reach out, because we want you to know that you're not alone, because that's the worst part, is feeling alone on this journey. And because it's just so uncertain. So we've been there and done a lot of these sorts of things and had all of those emotions that you're probably feeling that overwhelm, feeling that brain fog, feeling that depression, all of those things. And you know what, just makes it a little bit easier when we can be there to support each other through this as well.
Definitely does. Yeah, 100%. Know that there is a tribe that you can belong to, and online platforms are great now for that. Facebook has so many different groups that are across the world. There's international groups on there for people with MS. There's also groups on there for carers. So not people who have MS, but there's carers groups specifically. And if you're a carer of someone, there's even groups that won't let people with MS in there. You only have to be a carer. So.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's a completely different journey, isn't it?
Totally different.
It's a big responsibility.
Huge. And it does take a certain person to be a carer.
Yeah. And, I imagine that there's an element of, I don't know what word to use for it, but almost to some level, like maybe resentment that would actually happen as far as that goes, because even if it's like a family member that's caring for you and doing all of those things, there'd be an element of them going, oh, like, I wish I could be doing X, Y, Z, but now I have to be doing this. And it's because I love you and it's because I want you to be, as well as possible. But there would be an element of, I don't know, is that the right word, Justine? Like resentment or
if you didn't have this disease, we could be out doing this, this, or this. And
Yeah, and I don't know. Resentment sounds really negative, but I'm sure there's a word that's like less negative than that. But just wishful that that you wish you didn't have to sort of do that, but that's the responsibility that is taken on. But yeah, being a carer must be a really tough job, and it does take a certain kind of person for sure.
it does, and I applaud anyone that is a carer and that is sticking it out and that loves that person so much that they are willing to help.
That's right. You're amazing carers. Big shout out, big love to all of you, because it's amazing work that you do, and we couldn't be where we are today without people that are just assisting us in some way, shape, or form. My assistance comes in the form of a cleaner, weekly, to just give my house a clean, so that's energy that I can put elsewhere. Because I'm not sure whether we've talked about it before, Justine, but we've mentioned it together, I know, about spoons. We've got 12 spoons of energy for the day. So if you haven't heard of the spoon theory, 12 spoons of energy for the day, and every task that you need to do uses up some level of spoon. So it might be getting up out of bed and having a shower. That's 1-2 spoons. Doing the vacuuming, that's another couple of spoons. So you've only got 12 for the day. And if you use them doing meaningless tasks that are kind of like, oh my God, I'm just using my energy just to do nothing, it's actually kind of not fulfilling work that we can be doing. So sometimes just getting help to lessen the amount of spoons that you're using on those sort of dull tasks that don't give us, that joy and happiness can actually be really helpful too.
And asking for help is, and I've said this before repeatedly, and I say it all the time, asking for help is a sign of strength. It is not a sign of weakness, and it is not a sign that you have failed in any way, shape, or form. Ask for help.
But we're not very good at it. No. I must admit, I think I've seen you do it. I know that I do it, where we sort of just like, we got this. I've got this. Like, I'll do it. I can do it. I can do it. And there's some element of it that it's not like a malicious thing, but sometimes we really think we can do it. Otherwise, it's a little bit of control. Otherwise, it's a little bit of perfectionist. Otherwise, it's all sorts of stuff that kind of gets in the way.
Are you in my mind?
Yeah, like, and there's all sorts of things that can kind of, make us feel like, we shouldn't ask for help, or we can't ask for help. But sometimes we just have to let our ego go, you know what? Just ask for help. It's going to be easier for you in the long run. Yes, it might not be done 100% perfect to your level of perfection, but guess what?
The big thing that I have learned, right, is, how do I put this? It won't be done to your level of satisfaction. 99% of the time it won't be, but you've got to learn to let that go. If someone's hanging out my washing and they hang it upside down to the way that I've done it, just close my eyes and walk away. Why you hang them up? Well, no, be appreciative that they've just been hung up and they're going to dry.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That's an example. And
yeah.
The way I would have done it, or they do it different, or they chop the vegetables different than what I would have chopped them. They put too much Vegemite on the toast or whatever it is. Let it go.
Yeah.
Do that Frozen song. Let it go.
That's right.
And just be appreciative that someone's done it for you.
Yeah, that's right. And, when we look at it in that way as being like such a gift that somebody's actually helping, and that's actually amazing. And now we get to spend time doing something good, doing something that makes us happy, rather than spending that time just criticizing that person, going, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. And look, I know people that have done that. I have had carers that have told me stories about other people that all they do is just bitch about, whatever they have done, like a service that they're providing to try to help this person. All they do is spend the time just criticizing and saying it's not done right. Look, it's each individual person, but there are better things that you can be doing with your time if it's stirred up by, a carer that's actually doing something really helpful for you.
Yeah. And I just want to mention as well to everyone out there, don't forget to thank them. And not just once. If they're doing a good job, thank them. If they're having a tough time, then they're having a tough time, thank them for helping you, because those two little words of thank you, geez, I wish my mum had said that to me. Not once did she thank me.
Yeah, it goes a long way, doesn't it? And remember that, well, one, that they're people and that they have feelings too. So that's a good one to acknowledge. But two, they're not super women or men that are actually doing it. Like, they have real sort of levels of ability. They've got their own problems probably. And that this is what they're doing to help you. So just be mindful of the fact that they might also have a whole lot of baggage, a whole lot of issues. I know actually a fair few people that I've had in the past that have had their own NDIS plan, that they're actually, they're actually disabled themselves, but they want to do something to help other people as well. So you know what? Like, everyone's got something going on in the background that we don't always know about. So just be a bit mindful of that too, that these aren't just slaves that have come in to do all your stuff that, you don't have to thank, you don't have to acknowledge that they've got a life outside of whatever the work is. These are real people and they're doing their best to really help you.
That's right. And, I'm so grateful that it's not 30 years ago. So grateful if there was ever a time to have this disease, now is the time.
Yeah.
We're on the breakthrough of finding a cure, finding a way to repair the myelin, having support, carers, all of that. I mean, ideally, it would be fantastic that it didn't exist anymore. But I live a pretty good life.
Yeah. And we'll start another podcast when there's a cure and we're like, remember when we had MS?
This is going to be history.
Right.
And funny you say that, because we've co-authored a book together called, what's it called, Elle? Do you remember?
Whispers of Resilience, our MS stories.
Yes, and it comprises 26 of us across Australia that are sharing our day-to-day lives and how we were diagnosed and the highs and the lows as well in that. And I was saying on a podcast the other day, actually, that my dream is that our book becomes a history book. That, wouldn't it be wonderful when there's a cure for this and people say, oh, yeah, there used to be a thing called MS. I wonder what it actually did.
Yeah.
And that our words now are in print and it's a history book. That's my ultimate goal out of the book. But at the moment, those that are carers, those that haven't, newly diagnosed, if you've had it for a while, or simply the general public who know of MS but don't know what MS does, everyone can read this book. And it is available on resiliencemindset.com.au for pre-order at the moment, and it will be out on the 14th of September and available on Kindle as well as paperback. And I'm going to try my darndest to actually get it on Audible as well. So there's about 26 hours of reading that needs to be done for that, but I'm recording that one in my wardrobe.
Can't wait. I hope it has a visual as well.
I might do some visuals for my socials. Actually, if you go onto Resilience Mindsets podcast and look up Zach Martin Taylor's vlogcast, I'll go on Justine Martin Corporation and then on to Zach's episode. I recorded his when I was sitting in my wardrobe.
Yeah.
So he's my son. So I interviewed my son. And there was so much going on in the house and it was so noisy, and my office, it was just impractical to try and do that. And I'm like, where in the house can I go that's quiet? And the acoustics in that wardrobe, because there is about $40,000 worth of clothing in there, but we won't go down there. That'll be another podcast. Was amazing in there. And so you can see all my clothes behind me and that. And so for Audible, it has to be done a certain way. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, that's the best room. So
yeah. Nice.
But if you do want a copy of the book, definitely resiliencemindset.com.au. You'll also, in September, be able to purchase it online or download it online as well.
That's right. And there's going to be launch parties and all sorts of stuff. So keep your eyes and ears open for those.
And we're donating 25% of the profits of the book back to MS Research to help us find a cure.
Yay! Love it.
Well, Allyson, I think we might wrap it up today.
Yes, it was lovely talking about carers today. And yeah, big shout out to all the carers once again. Mwah, we love you, and thank you for doing everything wonderful that you do.
And remember, reach out if you need help and support yourself, because there are organisations out there that can help you do that. And I will be putting some in the show notes, some reference points for people as well here in Australia. So thank you, Elle, for a lovely chat today. These podcasts are, delving deep into past memories and things that have happened, but I'm sure that someone out there listening or watching has gained some insight today. So until next time, everyone, you all stay healthy.
Are you ready to be inspired? Get ready for the book that will touch your heart and ignite your spirit. Whispers of Resilience, Personal Stories of Living with MS is now available for purchase. Have you ever wanted to peek into the lives of individuals who have triumphed over adversity? Look no further. This highly anticipated anthology brings together a group of exceptionally talented authors, all living with multiple sclerosis, who share their personal journeys with unyielding honesty and vulnerability. At www.resiliencemindset.com.au, you can now secure your copy of this remarkable book that captures the essence of resilience, hope, and the power of the human spirit. Dive into the stories that will captivate your imagination and open your heart to the triumphs and challenges faced by these courageous individuals. With each turn of the page, you'll witness the unbreakable spirit of these authors, as they navigate the unpredictable terrain of MS. Their words will inspire you, uplift you, and remind you of the incredible strength that lies within. Visit www.resiliencemindset.com.au now and embark on a transformative journey through the pages of Whispers of Resilience. Get your copy today.